So corporate media is shocked. Oops, hold on. So corporate media, sorry, let me start that over again. So corporate media is a little bit shocked. RFK Jr. will serve in Trump's administration, the head of Department of Health and Human Services. So there's a lot of things to be critical about RFK Jr. about being in a very close, in-depth relationship with one Rabbi Shmuley, being hypocritical in regards towards the crisis in Gaza, and of course many other issues, especially with his campaign running in the Democrat Party, which again, RFK Jr. You had to be living under a rock to consider thinking that you had a snowflake's chance in Vulcan's Forge to actually think you could run a fair, clean campaign in the DNC. I mean, come on. Okay, you have a better chance believing in Santa Claus, RFK. But nonetheless, want to pull this up here because CNN seems to be a little bit shocked.
A source is now telling us Donald Trump has offered the job of Secretary of Health and Human Services, HHS, to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The former Democrat has become a vocal skeptic of vaccines and a variety of other public health measures. By any measure, it is going to be a controversial decision once it is confirmed, of course. But we're going to delve into exactly what and why. With me is Dr. Jonathan Reiner, CNN medical analyst. So let's delve, first of all, into what do we know about Kennedy's views and what has given it sort of a raised eyebrow, if you will.
Well, most recently, we've heard.
Now, of course, you know the big pharma is going to be very triggered by Kennedy, as well as the healthcare insurance industry, and there's a lot to be talking about in regards towards. And I got to be very careful tiptoeing around these landmines because we're also live on YouTube, okay? But in regards towards the pandemic that impacted us all in 2020, which many of us are still recovering from, not only financially but emotionally, physically, psychologically, the whole shebang. It's quite clear that there is a lot of skepticism, especially towards how it was administered and overall the long-term consequences and repercussions, and even challenging or being vocal about it caused many people to be deplatformed and demonetized or censored. Question everything, people, as you should all the time, every time.
Mr. Kennedy state equivocally that in his mind, no vaccine has been proven to be safe and effective. And on its face, that's just incorrect. It just doesn't jive with the facts. Both safety and efficacy are extensively evaluated before any medication, and particularly vaccines, are approved and licensed by the FDA. And there are reams of safety data and reams of efficacy data for every therapeutic agent that comes on the market in the United States. So on its face, it's just false. But in the United States, that kind of doubt resonates, widely. Mr. Kennedy, in particular, recently has been a loud skeptic and denier of the COVID vaccines, for instance, which have been credited with saving millions of lives in the United States during the COVID pandemic.
Now, he says, and in the run-up to this election and thereafter, and of course when it became clear that he was very, very much part of Team Trump, he has repeatedly disavowed the anti-vax label. He claims he's not against safe vaccines, and
that is true. He has said that he is not against safe vaccines, and I this is a whole other kind of Pandora's box here. But to see, the thing is, the problem and the reason why there's a lot of questions and criticisms about especially what happened to us during COVID, is because a lot of politicians and corporations and big time influential people in positions of power made a huge financial killing in more ways than one. And not just with money, but again, financial killing in record amounts of profit with the aftermath of Operation Warp Speed. So many politicians, Democrats and Republicans. You see, this country was ill prepared for what happened to us in 2020. And now it can be argued that perhaps those lockdowns were not only detrimental, but there will be long-term studies about overall what that year did to people, society, countries. And I'm very interested in reading that report because it's a scar. It's caused people now, one of the positive things I would say, is to question everything, to be critical of institutions, the media, and politicians. Because many of these politicians never practice what they preached. And again, as I've pointed out before, those politicians made a lot of money, while the rest of us were left indoors.
Says he's actually vaccinated his children. So I'm guessing here it's, and this is the difficult part here that'll obviously have to be poured over, is you have a headline that, you know, Kennedy anti-vaxxer, and a nuanced response that might make it more difficult for people to understand exactly where he stands. And that, for people like you, could be very difficult when it comes to, if you will, promoting a particular vaccine or a particular public health policy.
I have not heard him articulate that some vaccines are safe and effective, and he has concerns about.
He has said so on numerous podcasts. He has said so in many interviews. He has said these things. I think, again, what the pushback that he's getting the most, RFK Jr., and again, there's a lot of things to be critical about RFK Jr., but if we're going to be doing this correctly, it was towards the current vaccine in regards to what happened to us in 2020 with COVID.
Others. He has spent, a decade, his almost his career, placing doubt in the minds of the public about the safety of these agents. He's loudly claimed that vaccines have been associated with autism. So if he wants to sort of rehabilitate his position, then he's very quick to cite data or to cite pieces of data. So let's have him explain to the United States public which vaccines he thinks are safe and effective. When asked on CNN last month, he stated none.
Right. Well, and then on
Yes, thank you, Dr. Evil.
this question as well, fluoride, for example, in water. Now, look, this is one of those debates that has been going as long as I can remember, whether we should have fluoridation in the water or not.
I don't know. The ingredient I want in my water is a controversial statement here, and I hope it doesn't trigger too many people. But the main ingredient I want in my water is in a 3, 2, and an uno, water, please. Please, water. Let us have water. WATER. I don't want any other nutrients. I don't want any other kind of chemicals. But hey, if you drink Chicago water, there's a very good chance you're drinking lead. And if you followed Harlan's media, especially from the beginning, we did not one but 2 documentaries set in Indiana, in which, quote unquote, regulated toxic waste is being dumped into Lake Michigan. So not only do we have lead in our drinking water, but other fantastic chemicals and metals to make everything so magically delicious.
Suppose having somebody who is more against it, in a sense, tips the balance of that debate when that person does become, if they become, the Secretary of HHS.
Right, and again, there is an abundant amount of data that proves that not only is fluoride safe in the levels that are added to our drinking water in the United States, but also that the fluoride or the fluoridation of water dramatically decreases the incidence of dental disease, particularly in young children.
Yes, and so CNN seems to be panicked a little bit. So they're trying to deflect and cause some fears. But I want to pull up this article here. As it stands, hold on. I don't know why that video always keeps popping up. Come on, quit doing that. President-elect Donald Trump nominated RFK Jr. to be Secretary of Health and Human Services Thursday, charging the noted vaccine skeptic, sex maniac, and animal corpse dumper with ending the chronic disease epidemic. I forgot what he did with that bear. Hey, boo-boo, where are you? Had to deal with that baby bear that he found dead in the road. Said he was going to, cut it up or whatever. Hey, boo boo, there's a dead bear. Brainworm sufferer Kennedy, which, by the way, there's a dead brainworm in his head, 70, has been a staunch supporter of Trump since suspending his independent presidential bid in August. The president-elect had teased that he would let RFK Jr. go wild should the Republican nominee win the November 5th election. Despite his well-known opposition to vaccination of children, Kennedy insisted the day after Trump, 78, became the 47th president that he was not going to take away anyone's vaccines. Okay, well, we'll see what happens. If vaccines are working for somebody, I'm not going to take them away. People ought to have a choice, and that choice ought to be informed by the best information, he told NBC News November 6th. So I'm going to make sure scientific safety studies and efficiency are out there, and people can make individual assessments about whether that product is going to be good for them. Another Kennedy bugaboo, the practice of putting fluoride in local water supplies, is regulated by state and local municipalities, making it unlikely that he will have any say in that matter either. And as we all have seen firsthand, when somebody from the Trump administration decided to go ham, case in point, I'm looking at you, Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, who went after cannabis, even though states, and again, this was like early 2018 when good old Jeff Sessions decided to go after cannabis, especially in states that legalize it for recreational medicinal use. Trump kicked him to the side. So maybe RFK Jr. is in a Jeff Sessions, so there's only certain things that he can do. If confirmed as head of HSS, RFK Jr. will oversee 80,000 employees and $1.7 trillion budget and a vast network of agencies and sub-agencies that cover topics as varied as nutrition, immigration, even biodefense research. Kennedy has called out what he describes as insidious corruption at the FDA and the NIH and the HHS and the USDA, and warned Food and Drug Administration employees in the next post days before the election that if Trump won, I have two messages for you. Number one, preserve your records, and two, pack your bags, and three, nothing will fundamentally change. Trust me on it, folks. I don't see earth-shattering things happening anytime soon. One Senate Republican source who was aghast at Trump's pick, telling the Post that RFK has as much chance of getting confirmed by the Senate as he does taking a vaccine shot. So maybe RFK Jr. doesn't get appointed at all. The source added it's unclear whether the threat of a recess appointment of Kennedy by Trump could lead to soon to be Senate Majority Leader John Thune to keep the upper chamber in marathon session, saying that dynamic is still being worked through. For too long, Americans have been crushed by the industrial food complex and drug companies who have engaged in deception, misinformation, and disinformation when it comes to public health. Trump wrote in his nomination announcement, making rare use of his X account to broadcast a cabinet pick. And there's one thing I have to say. We've all gone grocery shopping, and yes, we know things cost an arm and a leg, but many of us do read the ingredients. I have to tell you, I like my food without sugar in it, and yet every time I go to a local store, I'm seeing that thing, that white sugar, that white powder that makes everyone go mad. No, I'm not talking about the booger sugar from Colombia. I'm talking about sugar, the sweet stuff, the good stuff that's in everything, somehow everywhere. Now, an innocent mind would say, well, gee, Kit, doesn't sugar only belong in candy and other sweet stuff? No, you see sugar everywhere, in everything, in sauces, in other food products. And you're wondering what's going on. It's almost as if they're trying to get us addicted to that. And recent reports are now coming out that 65 to 70% of Americans are suffering from obesity. Compare our food and how people are in shape in other countries, and America is abysmal. And I'll just put in my own perspective here. When I went to Japan, the food tasted different. The ingredients seemed to be all natural. All right. I'm just saying from my perspective. Okay. I'm just saying what I saw. And there weren't a whole lot of obese people there. I'm just throwing it out there. It's almost as if the great Saint George Carlin was right. They're trying to dumb us down with the TV, the politicians, and the food, so we're all easily controllable, so that we're all continuously sick, so that we're all in debt, so that we're all continue to be chained up in a system that is purposely working against us. Oh, and Dana Fairbanks brings up another good thing. High fructose corn syrup. Why are they putting that in there? Why are you doing that? And BW writes, we should follow some of Europe's health guidelines. Hey, BW, that's what's going to get a knock at the door. Political police, Commissariat Hans here. I mean, come on. I mean, that's just how it is. The safety and health of all Americans is the most important role of any administration. The HHS will play a big role in helping ensure that everybody will be protected from harmful chemicals, pollutants, pesticides, pharmaceutical products, and food additives that have contributed to overwhelming health crisis in this country. Mr. Kennedy will restore these agencies to traditions of gold standard scientific research and beacons of transparency to end the chronic disease epidemic and make America great and healthy again. Hey, let's have democracy in this chat. You think that's going to happen, or you think good old lobby groups are going to be knocking at the door saying, hey, here's some magic money we found. Stop asking questions. Type 1 for no, Kit. There's going to be honor and integrity, and we're going to make America healthy again. Type 2, boy, that ain't going to happen. Why'd you ask that silly question, you silly goose? Wonder how many 2s will be in the chat. I wonder, don't you ever wonder? Trump's decision to offer Kennedy the HHS position was first reported by Politico and comes one day after the Post reported that Kennedy, an honorary chair of the Trump transition team, was gunning hard for the secretary role, while allies were pushing him to accept a lesser advisory post. Neurosurgeon Dr. Ben Carson, the former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development in Trump's first term, was also aiming to run HHS, sources had told the Post. Who remembers Dr. Ben Carson? I forgot how creepy he was during the Republican primary. We was just there standing and smiling as people were walking past him. Kennedy, the son of the late Attorney General and Senator of New York, was previously considered to run the Environmental Protection Agency by former Barack Obama after the 2008 election, while Trump tapping the Democratic scion for a slot on a vaccine commission during his first term. RFK Jr., again, we all know he ran as a Democrat. Why were you doing that? Then ran as an independent, vowing to change health habits in America, bashing big pharma and the food industry. He and his running mate, Nicole Shanahan, questioned the need for some vaccines and the impacts they had on the body, and were publicly confused about their tickets abortion platform. Come on, Kennedy. Be better, be best. So what can we take away from this? Obviously, many of Trump's picks are triggering a lot of liberals, and we are seeing many of the meltdowns take place, especially in corporate media. How can we forget, including in Tulsi Gabbard, Marco Rubio, Matt Gaetz, and now RFK Jr., corporate media seem to make all those people villains, okay? And there's reasons to be critical of people. But there's also something else now that corporate media has to do. They have to now try and, I guess, make strong arguments. But the reason why I played that video is because all in all, they're failing to really do real critical thinking and failing to criticize a candidate or former presidential candidate in regards to whether or not he is qualified for the job. They're going to be dusting off their old talking points. Now, corporate media, I saw how you covered the RFK Jr. campaign, especially when he was running as a Democrat and as an independent, and it was absolutely abysmal. Plus, there was a lack of real concern, especially what was happening to him and other independent third-party candidates as they were being kicked off the ballot. But then, surprise, surprise, as soon as he dropped out of the race, when he was trying to get his name off of key swing states, all of a sudden, the courts there were saying, no, he could stay on there. Isn't that fascinating? Isn't that interesting? So, will RFK Jr. make America healthy again? After decades of the food corporations, big pharma, the healthcare insurance industry twisting the minds of the American people, purposely buying ads on corporate TV and buying off politicians, my answer is no. I mean, if he could pull it off, wow, great. But it's a Herculean task. And the thing is, those who want to fundamentally change things are eventually pushed out. George Carlin said it's one big club. Now, RFK Jr. is part of that club, and he should know very well just how it operates, how it runs things. So if you want to make America healthy again, folks, Hard Lens Media is going to give you this advice. You're going to have to do it yourself. Read labels, question everything. Given real critical thought, you have to take care of yourself. Don't listen to the big government to follow the orders and eat the bugs. Don't do that. You're going to have to make your own choice, make your own decisions, and do your own research. But that's what I expect out of my audience to do. You're going to have to make your own choice. It's always been your own choice. But if you choose to follow the orders, remember, there are some orders that are purposely leading you off a cliff.